show you how to build a magical floating environment in just 20 minutes. If this is your first time, you're going to walk away with something cinematic and magical. The first time I opened Unreal, it felt like I was walking into a movie studio. My name's Valentina. I've been working in the games industry for 9 years. I started in the TV, broadcast, real-time graphics industry. I worked with Riot Games, FIFA, and NBC Universal. And then I started working on more games like Sonic, SpongeBob, Barbie, He-Man. Then I worked on Fortnite projects like Dead Pines and Only Up. And I also have loved teaching along the way, from being a professor at University of Florida, done some workshops in museums, and also got to be a mentor for the Unreal Fellowship at Epic Games. Unreal isn't just the engine for fun side projects, it's also the engine that made Fortnite, Mandalorian, Final Fantasy, and car designs at BMW. So the same software that billion-dollar productions use is free for you, and it's also free for you to learn today. And you can start building worlds just like those right on your laptop. So our goal for today is to recreate this floating world together. We're going to import all of the assets, add some glowing particles, we're going to set the mood with lighting and fog, and we're going to finish with a cinematic camera shot. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to set up a magical sky atmosphere with post-process. We're going to be able to create glowing particles and add some post-process details. We're going to import assets like the floating rocks, which I got for free on the Fab marketplace. We're going to be able to build some mood with the lighting, add fog for atmospheric effects, and we're also going to do a cinematic camera setup to capture our environment and make it look like a movie. So as an art director, before I start any project, I always have to gather as much inspiration as possible. This is the mood board I've created for this project. It has some glowing fantasy forests, some floating rocks, magical skies. This is how I set the tone, and it helps me have a clear vision. To access Unreal Engine, you'll have to download the Epic Games launcher first on the Unreal Engine website. For this project, I'm going to use 5.6 because I want to take advantage of the newest quality updates. To download 5.6, you can go to the library, press the plus button, and select 5.6. So once you have Unreal Engine 5.6 downloaded, we can go ahead and open our Epic Games launcher, go to library, and press launch in the 5.6.1 option. So I have the Fab plugin downloaded with my 5.6 engine because it's very handy for me to just open Fab inside of the engine. So you can just download it from here. And then you just press install to engine. Once the Unreal project browser opens, you can click here in the games section, and let's choose third person. And then you can choose where you want to put this and give your project a name and press create. When Unreal Engine launches for the first time, you'll notice that the third person level is open. If you don't have this, you can always bring it in by going to the content browser down here, pressing add, and pressing add feature or content pack, then pressing third person or choosing between any of these. So for our project, we're just going to go ahead and delete all of these static meshes. So you can either just click them one by one, or click and press shift and select all of these SM underscore objects and then press delete. You can also go in here and search and press SM and then press enter. So I included Fab links to all of the assets I used for this project. So if you installed Fab to your engine, let's just make sure you can go here to edit plugins, search Fab here, and make sure this is checked on. So if it's not, just check it on, and then you can exit, and you'll probably have to restart if it wasn't checked on. These are the assets that we're going to use. I included links to these, so make sure you add them to your library, and then we can easily access them in our content drawer. So now that we made sure we have Fab, we can click on our content drawer again and open Fab. So when you have added those assets to your library, we can add them to our project. So all you have to do is open up the item in our Fab Launcher inside of Unreal Engine, and then you press Add to Project. So we're going to start with the foundation, which is the actual floating islands. So we can find those in the Skytown pack. So if you go to Skytown, then press Meshes, and then you can either scroll down or search like we did in the outliner. You can find these flying islands here. So all we have to do is click and drag. And to zoom away, we can use our scroll wheel and zoom out. And we can move by pressing W. Or you can find the gizmo here, the W, and scale is here, or R. And then you'll notice that it's very uniform when you scale, so you can change how uniform you scale. So this has some snapping right now. It has 10 snapping. So if you change it, if you turn this off, it won't have any snapping and you can scale freely. So I'm pressing Control D to duplicate and then E to rotate. So feel free to give these all the dimension that you like. So now let's start adding some foliage and vegetation to our islands. So this Skytown pack already came with some grass clumps that we can quickly use. So in order to paint grass quickly on our islands, we can change our mode here from selection to foliage. So remove this and let's press foliage. And now all we have to do is select our grass that we want to use, and we can click and press shift if you want to grab more than one. And then click and drag to here. And you can just press save. You can give this a name. Now we can make sure all of these are checked on. We can play with our brush size, and you can check filters to make sure that it's going to be placed on static meshes. You can change the paint density. So if we scroll here to our island, another quick tip is that if your camera is way too fast, you can click here and change your camera speed, or if it's too slow, you can move it up. Now you'll notice our brush is activated, and we can just start pressing and painting grass here. So you can do this with any mesh. You can do this with grass, with rocks, with trees. It's a fun hack. Just notice that this will make your scene heavier. So there are other ways to populate your scene with grass. This is still a pretty optimized mode, because a lot of these meshes that come with these packs come with LODs. So LODs help make scenes more optimized. So now I'm going to add in these flowers. And I'm going to uncheck the grass and just check the flowers. And I'm going to move the density up. And we have a nice field of luscious grass and flowers. So when you're happy with your foliage and your flowers and your rocks, you can go back to selection mode, and we can start adding some more assets to our scene. This scene also came with some cute houses that I'm going to add. So all you have to do is just click and drag them in. And again, E for rotate. R for scale, W for moving, and feel free to position those wherever you'd like. Now we can add some nice particles and glowing details to our scene. So if you go to the particles wind control system asset and press blueprints, we can bring in these particle fireflies. Now we can scale up the firefly spawn radius. Let's make the firefly size bigger and the amount higher. And then you'll start to see them populate in your scene. There's some more assets here like dandelions. We can add closer to our islands. So if you zoom in closer, I press F to frame in on objects. So if you click on an object and press F, that will frame the object. Now I'm just going to click and drag this dandelion particle. And let's change the spawn radius again. So these little details already start to make our scene feel a little bit more magical. And we also have these blueprint particle leaves that I'm going to add that will help make the scene feel a little bit more magical. So now we can set the mood. For this, I am using the ultra dynamic sky. We can play around with lighting here too. You see that the scene already comes with really nice lighting, and we have a lot of options here to play around with. But to keep this quick and simple, I'm using ultra dynamic sky, which I can just click and drag. So we're actually going to grab our clouds and move them down so it looks like we're in the sky floating. So to do that, just click on your sky, hold down shift, and here in the location in the blue area, just scroll to the left. And what's really nice about ultra dynamic sky is you have so many options, so you can change the time of day. And something that I like to do to move very quickly is here in the search, just press color, just type color. And I like changing the colors around for the clouds. Well, I'm going for a very pink theme, so you can change the light color. And if you chose daytime, you would change the color of the skylight here. And since I chose dawn dusk, I'm going to change it here. So this is the actual color of the sunlight. You can change the fog. So I'm going to skip through this process and play around with the settings. But yeah, feel free to go ahead and change the settings to how you would like. So now I just added these waterfalls. So these are in the water pack meshes folder, and there's different options here for the type of waterfalls. So I just clicked and dragged them in and scaled them up. So a nice way to start previewing what our cinematic will look like is you can press G on your keyboard, and that will start hiding gizmos out of the way, and you can see what your project will look like in game mode or cinematic mode. So I started already playing with the post process in our lighting. I went in and added a cinematic camera actor. So you can do that by going to this place actors area, going to the Cine tab and clicking and dragging a Cine camera actor. So once you brought in your Cine camera actor, you can either move it and see where the camera is by looking through this little screen, or you can click here and you can actually look through the camera and move to where you want the camera to look at. So I like to play with the post-process settings inside of the actual camera. And you can change the actual lens setting. So you can change from having a 16:9 camera, or you can have the preset for a 35mm camera or a 50mm camera, which is what I'm using now, which gives a nice little blur effect. If you zoom in, for example, like on the grass, you'll see like the background is a little bit blurred, but our grass is still not in focus. So we can focus on our grass by changing the manual focus distance here. So you can click and drag, or you can just press this dropper and press on what you want to focus, and it makes that area very sharp, and it's very cool. You can also turn on the debug plane, so it shows you what is blurry and what is in focus. You can also change the crop settings and the focal length here. So the camera has post-process options. I like to turn on the intensity for the bloom up, so you'll see things are looking a little bit more blurry and dramatic now. I also like to add a little bit more exposure compensation to make things brighter. It depends on what look you're going for, but I noticed these references that we grabbed have some brighter environments. And I love this because we can already do this in Unreal Engine instead of going into post and editing our video there. So to make things feel a little bit more magical, I'm going to add some local fog, which we can find in our Place Actors window in the VFX section. You can select a local fog volume, so you can actually scale these up locally. Now let's make our cinematic. So if we go back to our content drawer, you can either make a new folder or you can make your level sequence here. So if you right click here and you go to cinematics and level sequence, you can create a new one and give this a name. And then double click this. And this will be where we edit our actual cinematic. So we can drag anything in our scene here and animate it. We're going to start by adding in our camera actor. So if you click and drag your camera actor into your sequencer, you'll see that it already starts to add your scene in here. And the first thing we can do is we can add a keyframe to the transform. So if you press this here in the beginning, it will set a keyframe. So I'm going to move the camera to where I want my video to start. I want it to kind of start hiding in the grass. And I'm going to press on add a new keyframe. Then I'm going to move to the end, and it's going to be a very simple fly through. And I'm just going to move through my scene in real time towards the light. Then I'm going to press on the last keyframe here, and I can play through this by clicking and dragging the slider and then pressing spacebar. So in just a few minutes, you went from a blank sky to a magical floating island world. You learned how to import assets, add glowing effects, build atmosphere, and capture it with a cinematic shot. So for your next step is to relight your scene in different colors, add more floating rocks, create your own cinematic